Welcome back, everyone, to the Moms Like Me podcast, powered by Support Now. I am finally feeling better and super excited for our next guest, Melissa Bass, who joins us today. Not only is she a mom, she's also the executive director of Game Plan for Hope. And something that's really unique about her story is, and I'll let her tell it, is that the way that she kind of entered this world of trauma and hardship is one that I feel like does get some attention in mainstream because it's related to sports. And I think there's so much to glean from Melissa's experience, both in what she experienced as well as what she's doing now to help other families that are going through these life-changing hardships. So first of all, Melissa, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jordan. I'm so excited to be at the here, and
Yeah.
it's always fun to tell and share our story.
Well, I'm happy to guide you through it. I think where I'd like to start is to share kind of what started this for you all. Obviously, this wasn't something that you didn't come up with this idea out of nowhere. This
Right.
was provoked,
Correct.
but I would love for you to share the story of Trenton.
Yeah. It was September 2017. Trenton is our youngest son, and yeah, he was a senior in high school, and it was going to be the second game of the year. It was going to be a good year because he was a team captain, and yeah, just Friday night football, everybody loves Friday night football. So it happened to be an away game about an hour and a half from home. And we live in the southwest corner of Minnesota. So we are like 2 miles from Iowa, 3 miles from South Dakota. So our big city is actually in South Dakota. It's Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And so we were at the game and, all is good. We were winning. We were up like 8-0 with like a minute 30 left in the game, and there was a play, and all of a sudden there was a player down, and it was a Hills player. Hills Beaver Creek is where we're from, and sometimes it just takes a while to figure out who the player is. This was kind of different because the player wasn't moving at all. Like, they were face down on the ground, and you really don't figure out who it is until you see all the other players leaving the field and you look for your son's number. And I didn't see his number, 28, leaving the field. And then I hear the crowd start saying, "I think it's Trenton. I think it's Trenton." And, you just kind of sit there and start praying just because time was, it was getting longer and longer. And the longer it gets, the more your heart starts pumping. And just knowing it was him, my husband has been on the local fire department, volunteer fire department, and rescue for, oh gosh, 26 years. My middle son was actually one of the coaches on the team, and he's an EMT, but he happened to be up in the stands making calls. Well, I saw both of them go down to the field, and then my heart really started racing, and I just saw people in the stands starting to grab hands and pray. And then, sorry, this is like 8 years ago, and I still get choked up. And then I felt hands laying on me, and it was just the peace that I needed as a mom, not knowing what exactly was going on down there. And it kept me, I feel, from just running down there and being that mom that was like freaking out because I knew that that wasn't going to help the situation any. So I just stood there and people just kept praying and I started praying, obviously. But yeah, he wasn't moving at all. And of course, I hear my husband and son's side of the story that he was face down. His mouth guard was still in his mouth, so he really couldn't communicate and he couldn't take it out because he couldn't move. They were asking him all sorts of questions, and until my husband reached in and pulled his mouth guard off, he really couldn't answer anything other than I can't move. He's like, "What do you mean you can't move?" And he's like, "I don't know. I just can't move anything." And they were pulling like leg hairs just to see if he could feel anything, and he couldn't obviously feel anything. So basically, they brought the stretcher out and put the C-collar on and got him off the field, and the local hospital was probably 20 miles away, and, of course, that seemed like an eternity. I
Sure.
rode along with in the ambulance, and we got to the hospital, and they did a CT scan, and that's when they found out that he had fractured his C5, C6 vertebrae, and it was the fractures of the bone were putting pressure on his spinal cord, which was causing paralysis. So there happened to be a helicopter in the area because this was a small town, so they're not gonna do surgery or anything like that there. So everything went really quickly. This was probably 9 o'clock at night when it happened, and the helicopter got there, flew us to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Vera Hospital, where they did the surgery, and by the time he got into surgery, it was probably 1 o'clock, so it was a 3-hour time span,
Wow.
and, yeah, when he got out, the neurosurgeon came up to us to talk, and it was probably a 6 or 7-hour surgery. I remember asking the question, right, "Is he ever gonna walk again?" And I remember him looking at me and just giving me the response that they're supposed to give, right? "Well, we really can't say, it's too early, and, as a mom, you just keep pressing," and that's when I got, he's like, "Well, I don't like to answer this question, but if you really want an answer, he doesn't have a very big percentage of a chance to walk again."
Wow.
And then explained why. So, yeah, that's when reality kinda set in, and we really didn't know anything about paralysis or what it meant or if he could get it back or not. So it was just kind of like we were in shock.
Melissa, yeah, I hear this, and it's just a reminder just how quickly things can change. 1 second you're just watching your son play in a high school football game in beginning of September, and the next second you're talking about him not being able to walk. I mean, just the fragility of it all is so striking to me. Throughout those hours, I'm trying to better visualize this. Was Trenton fully communicative? Was he like, what was his disposition in these hours?
Yeah, he never did lose consciousness. He didn't have any kind of a brain injury. He was fully cognitive. So, we were able to communicate with him, obviously. So that was all good. But you could also see the fear enter him as things
Really?
started to get real. He will tell his own story, and he's been on a lot of podcasts and stuff too. And you can just Google Trenton Bass and you're going to see all kinds of stories. But he will tell his story that he can't explain it, but he had peace from the time it happened and he can't explain it, right? And I guess
Yeah.
I attribute that to all the prayers that were being said at the time, not knowing what was going on. But I know as a mom, I was praying for peace over his mind so that fear wouldn't enter in. So,
Mm.
yeah, I think when the CT scan was taken in the hospital and they told him it was a break in his C5, C6. I think that's when things started getting real for him
Wow.
and fear started entering. And he'll also tell the story, he started tearing up, and his middle brother, who was the coach, he's like, "Why are you crying?" He's like, "Things are going to be okay. It's going to be okay. You're going to be okay." And he just said that's what he needed to hear at the time. And yeah, we just kind of took things one day at a time after that. Of course, after the surgery happened and the surgeon tells him, what the reality of this is, all kinds of questions start entering his mind.
Melissa, what was the response from the community as word began to spread that this injury had taken place and the consequences of all of this?
Yeah, it was incredible. People started hearing about it while we were still, like immediately. That's one thing about social media, right?
Right.
Everybody at the football game must have started sending out prayer requests to all their contacts because I got a text from one of my friends that I hadn't seen in a long time saying, "We're praying for Trenton, we're praying for you." And it was like, how the heck did people hear this already? 2 days, I think, after his injury, one of my daughter-in-laws started a Facebook group called Pray for Trenton, and it wasn't in a couple days, and he had like 30,000 followers on the Facebook page just praying for
Wow.
him, which was a huge, huge thing. And, you don't realize it right away. But, looking back now, I can see how those prayers and just the following and the support has carried us through. But because it was a football accident and we live in small, rural USA, every area football team did a fundraiser for him.
Wow. That's so
And,
amazing.
of course, they set up a GoFundMe. So, money just kinda started pouring in. We just had tremendous support, and I'm not sure if it's because it was a football accident and it was just such a shock to everybody, but, yeah, the support we received was just amazing.
I also just want to touch on something that I think is so important for our listeners. It's from the very get-go, you talked about how even from the stands, the first thing you did was pray and how that helped give you peace and the hopes that that was giving him peace. And I think so often it's people overlook kind of what a specific family might be seeking. And for you, prayer, and it sounds like for him, prayer was very meaningful. And I think sometimes we project what we believe could be the most helpful without really figuring out and centering on what is actually helpful for that family. And so it's so incredible that so many people quickly identified that prayer really was what you were looking for. You were looking for more people to rally around you to kind of not just lift up him, but lift up your entire family.
Yeah, I mean, again, you really don't know at the time what's gonna help, but I knew just because of our faith that prayer was the only thing that I could go to at that time, and
Wow.
I tried to keep everybody up to date as much as possible. But I remember getting bombarded with texts, and every one of them just, would just make me cry. And there were I bet I remember having, like, 3 or 400 unread texts at one time, within that first few days.
Sure.
And it's just overwhelming, like, you can't answer every single one, but at the same time, it was so comforting knowing that everybody was reaching out and that they cared.
I also think that, not to say that this doesn't a reaction wouldn't happen like this in a more urban area, but it speaks to that small towns, more rural, everyone knows each other. It's one step removed, so everyone feels like this is their friend, their brother, their cousin, right? Like, it's kind of like the best of community in the worst of times.
Well, and not only that, but they think, well, whose child or doesn't play football or they know somebody close to them that does. And Trent's never blamed football. He doesn't feel that he'd never tell anybody not to play. In fact, he still loves football. But it's just one of those things that you think, well, that could have been my son,
Right.
equally. So yeah, that just I think really triggered a lot of people to just reach out and care.
So talk to me about the leap, so you're going through this experience and obviously very quickly having to navigate a world where your son can no longer walk. And in the midst of this, when did the idea for helping others in similar life-changing hardships emerge? When did you have that desire to set something up to help others that are experiencing similar things?
Yeah, so it kind of just happened organically. We spent 3 weeks in the Sioux Falls hospital, and then, quickly they start talking about a rehab hospital. And we didn't know that we couldn't just stay there, and, we could have stayed there, but there are facilities that specialize in spinal cord injuries, which, of course, we didn't know about. But so we ended up making a choice going out to Craig Hospital in Denver, Colorado, or Englewood, Colorado.
Mhm.
And it was a tough decision because it was gonna be 10, 12 hours away from any of our support, and
Mm.
especially for Trenton, his friends. But while we were out there within that first month, I remember getting a phone call from a friend who told us about a 14-year-old boy who was just in a car accident, and he's paralyzed, and he's also, in the same hospital Trenton was in, and they were just wondering if we'd be willing to talk to his mom. And I'm like, "Well, yeah, absolutely," because they're thinking about sending him to Craig Hospital where you're at. So I remember talking to the mom and just kinda, and I'm like less than a month into this and, trying to console this mom and just talk to her about, you just need to take it one day at a time. And, this place out here is great. So if it's a opportunity that, that you can do, I said I would highly recommend this because, and just sharing that experience.
Right.
Because again, you just don't know what you don't know, and we were reached out to by other families too while we were in Sioux Falls saying, "Hey, our son or daughter went to Craig Hospital, you gotta check them out." And other facilities too, like Madonna Rehab, so people did that for us. So yeah, we just kinda wanted to pay it forward. We didn't really formally come up with this until 2019, which is 2 years later, to make it formal. But in the midst of those 2 years, people were sending families to us saying, "Hey, this happened. Can you talk to them?" So like I said, it happened organically, nothing we planned to do.
Yeah.
But when we did decide to do it, it just made sense. We felt called to help others and walk alongside others that were going through such a true life-changing event. Like, you're
Yeah.
going to a football game one night, and then the next day, like, your whole life is different.
And curious, what role does Trenton play in the organization? Is he speaking on behalf of the organization, raising money? Kind of how does he weave in and out of Game Plan for Hope?
Yeah, so Trenton, he was 17 at the time. He was in rehab through the end of December, and then we went back and he finished high school, and then we went back out to Craig Hospital for 3 months to do a special program for quadriplegic. And then he decided he wanted to go to college. One of his doctors out there kind of encouraged him to continue his dream of being a mechanical engineer, which is he didn't know for sure that's what he wanted to do, but he was leaning towards that because he's really good in math. So he made the decision to go to college right away. And so he entered college as a freshman less than a year after his accident and pursued a mechanical engineering degree. And he got that done in 4 years, which,
Wow.
that's a whole nother story, right? But
Wow.
now he is on our board from probably, I think, maybe 3 months after his accident. He got his first request to do a speaking event and he did it. And that's kind of just been constant. Like, he's always
Yep.
being asked to, "Hey, would you come and talk?" And so he's doing a lot of speaking engagements, and he's also on our board, and he'll go out with me and talk to different organizations just to tell our story and ask for their support. So yeah, he's really engaged now. At first he wasn't, but within the last year or two, he's really engaged in what we're doing.
Melissa, describe the relationship you have with him now.
Well, he's 25 now, so it's definitely different than when he was 17. Stepping into a caregiver role for a 17-year-old son is not an easy task. And, that goes both ways, right? When you're 17 and you don't want your mom taking care of you. And I think over the years, there's just been this, I think, respect that has grown for both of us. He used to be very sassy with me. And I mean, and that was prior to the accident. Me and him kind of always
Yeah,
butting
teenage
heads.
boy.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and mom doesn't know anything, and so that's totally changed. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not perfect. We don't see eye to eye on everything, but there's definitely a respect there that has grown because of this.
Yeah. And for as a mom, what are your dreams for him?
Well, he will say this in his talks. He will say, "If I look back to high school prior to my accident, my goals would have been to go to college, get a good job, have good benefits, have a family." He has all of those things. He's accomplished all those things except for he wants to have a family now. So I guess my dream now is just to keep praying that, he meets that perfect person and that, accepts him for who he is, even though he's in a chair. So yeah, I just keep praying that he can have a family. So it's just kind of as everybody else's life, as you evolve into a different phase of life, you just pray. And I just want him to be accepted as normal. And,
Yeah.
it's hard because people do see a chair when they see him and anybody else with a disability. They tend to see the disability. So it's my prayer and hope is that, yeah, people can see past that and see him, his personality, because he's the same person he was before.
Yeah. And he's the same person he was before with the whole different perspective on life, like
Right.
a depth that others can't find because they haven't experienced what he has. And yeah, I would imagine that again, as a mom, it's as moms, we never stop worrying about our children,
No.
whether they're able-bodied, whether they're excellent students or not excellent. That's something my children are little, as you know, and what never ceases to amaze me is that every new season I worry about something different.
Yeah, that's true.
And so what you remind me in this conversation is, of course, Trenton has a different path, that there's a different level of concern or fear, and there's always another thing. And it sounds like he is such a catch. It sounds like there will be someone along the way that values him and all that he can provide, because life experiences like that tend to help shape you in a way that does allow you to be a better leader, a better husband, a better father, God willing, all those things.
Yeah.
So I pray for you to have that peace as well. Melissa, one of the other questions I have for you is, in the kind of earlier days of support, you've created an entire nonprofit around this idea of helping families get the sort of resources they need. I know that y'all do a lot of gift cards and gas cards and comfort kits and gift bags and holiday little deliveries. I mean, you're doing so much. But for, in the God forbid situation where people find themselves supporting someone like yourself has gone through something sudden, whether it's an accident on the field, a car accident, a house fire, what would be one of your biggest pieces of advice for the supporter that wants to do something but doesn't quite know what to do?
I would say just do it, because one of the biggest questions I got is, let us know how we can help you. That's one thing where you're never going to ask for help. Like, it was the hardest thing for us to accept all the help, because there were a lot of people that just stepped up and just did things, right? We had people that just started a fundraiser for us, and, if they would have asked us, we would have said, no, don't do that. We had community people that hung Christmas lights on our house because we were going to be coming home right around that time. We had people renovating our house most of our house was okay and laid out, right? But we had people that they stepped up and they took our tub out and put in a roll-in shower, just things like that, where if they would have asked us, we would have said, no,
Mhm.
we don't need this help, because your pride gets in the way and it's really hard to accept help. So I would just encourage people just to do things, whether it's, we see a lot of families now who this happens to somebody who has younger kids, like, just step in and just do. Don't ask, just do.
Just do it.
Yeah.
I love that. And Melissa, the other thing I can appreciate about some of the examples you shared is that the things that were done were both big and small.
Right. Yes.
Like, people got on a very practical level,
Yep.
again, seasonally, we'll talk about Christmas.
Right.
Well, we know that they want holiday lights. So someone has to do those things. And I think that sometimes what I notice or witness is everyone's looking for the most kind of grand gesture. What's the biggest amount, or and sometimes it's actually asking yourself, what are the smallest things that we can do that either they do consistently or that we know that they would be doing in this time
Right.
that can just be taken off their plate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by the way, I think you would be the first to admit that all of this is easier said than done.
Oh, yes, for sure.
I
Yeah,
mean,
and like I said, it's humbling, and you really have to swallow, your pride to accept help. So that's where just doing and not really asking kind of comes into play. So going back to like how we communicated, and so there were a lot of things going on, right? And this kind of is where when I heard about support now, I was like, that would have been cool, because there was a fundraiser going on through a platform. And then the Facebook page is kind of where I kept everybody up to date, but not everybody has social media.
that's right.
There were all these separate, fundraisers going on just in the different schools that were, communicated to us. But there was just not one place. It was just a lot I felt to navigate. So I decided just to, I mean, I kept everybody up to date because we were 12 hours away just by creating a video and posting it to social media on his Facebook follower pro so that people could keep praying. But I just felt like when I learned about Support Now and the fact that you guys have not only a fundraising platform, but you have kind of like I would say a caring bridge type platform where you can just keep people up to date. And then a meal train, like I think of, all the families we help, like I said, that have young families at home that can't be at rehab with them. And just being able to line up all those small things, right? Like, hey, can you help get these kids to school today? Because the other parent usually still has to keep working, right?
That's right. That's
So,
right.
yeah, when I heard about Support Now, I was just like, wow, that would be cool to have a platform that's just all in one that can do everything. And that's why I was like, I need to learn more about this because now that we support families, I want to promote this just because it's like not only do we want to use it for, reasons, but we would definitely tell families about it just because I feel like it'd be so much easier for them.
Well, for our listeners, I did not ask Melissa to say this, so thank you.
You did not, but one of the reasons that I'm on here is because I believe in what you're doing, and yeah,
Thank you
it's
very much.
great.
I appreciate that. That's the mission. The mission is to reduce overwhelm, to provide a shield, and to help consolidate. I always say we never want to get in the way of people supporting. We just want to do it in a way that's the least overwhelming to the family as well as to all the people that love you. Because to your point, when people want to help, they need to be informed. They need to know what you want, what you don't want, and just try to create like one streamlined channel to do that and to honor all the different ways people want to help, not just money, not just
Yeah.
meals, but also prayer or leaving a comment on an update. So I'm very, very grateful for those kind words and very excited to see the impact that we can make in the community that you serve, knowing that there is a better way and that not only will they keep more of the money, but they will feel a little less of that pressure to respond to everything because there's a system operating underneath them that allows them to handle whatever emotional moment that they're having while their community is off doing the things that they want to feel good about,
Right.
which is really critical here. Melissa, I've enjoyed this conversation so much. I'm so blown away by your disposition, your perspective. I know that this was 8 years ago, and I know I took you back. And so I'm just grateful for your honesty and your transparency, your emotion. I can't help but I'm a huge sports fan. I don't know if we've talked about this, but I do when you articulate what happened to Trenton in so many ways, I think of Remember the Titans. I think of Gary Bertier and the car accident and just all of the emotion that came over that town when in that movie. I'm sure people have said that to you before, where it feels like movie-like, where the entire community is now rallying around you and this amazing son of yours, who everyone kind of had destined to do one thing, and now he's doing something different. And that's not bad. It's just different.
Correct. And again, he would never tell anybody. He does not blame the sport. Just like the movie, remember Titans, like he got hurt in a car accident, right? So
Right.
Trent always says it was an accident. It was something that happened.
Right.
The fact that it happened on a football field, not in a car, he's
That's right.
like, it's just something that happened, and not only that, but, he just reminds everybody that no matter what our situation is, we have a choice every single morning when we wake up. And that's your attitude, whether or not you're going to have a positive attitude about the situation you're in, or if you're going to have a bad attitude. And, having a positive attitude and finding joy in your situation is so much better than the alternative. And
Very more. I
just,
love it.
it's just a reminder for all of us, right?
It is, and again, to your point, like, you can't control what happens to you. All you can do is respond to how you react, to how like, what are you gonna do in response to these things happening?
Right.
And I think it's why it sounds that you and Trenton are in a positive state of mind because there is a level of acceptance, and there's also this feeling of, "Well, what are we gonna do to move forward?"
Right. And that's part of Game Plan for Hope too, right? Is we go in, we visit with families, we share how we got through it. And part of
Right.
that is your attitude and it's a way for us to share our faith too, just because that is in our opinion, just the reason that we are doing as well as we are. So, but yes, everybody has a choice every day when they wake up. So,
I love it. Where can people find out more about Game Plan for Hope if they want to get more involved?
yeah, so we have a website and it's game plan, the number 4, hope.org. We're also on social media platforms, Facebook, Game Plan for Hope, and also Instagram, Game Plan for Hope, the number 4.
Well, I encourage our listeners to go check it out. Thank you, Melissa, for joining today. And I look forward to more opportunities to partner, to talk, and frankly, to continue learning from you. Thank you
Yeah,
so
thank
much.
you so much, Jordan.